Late October had boiled the mist until it clung like wet wool to the hill. If you knew the road, you could climb it by the rhythm of your breath 4 strides. Fog, fence-post fog. If you didn't, the abandoned Victorian on the crest of Greystone House waited, patient as a closed eye. Locals said a family had vanished there and left their supper plates warm. They said the maid walked out with damp hair and never dried. They said the house was cursed. It wasn't the sort of rumor that grew. It was the sort that settled, like soot in a chimney that hadn't burned for years. Alex didn't believe in soot that remembered. He believed in battery life, in map layers, in statistics about creaking wood. He believed in audiences. On the night before the first full moon of the season, he believed in going live. Alex come live. Title: No ghosts. Just old pipes. Greystone Hill. Viewers: 18,483 and climbing. Audio check, Alex said. The camera on his gimbal caught his breath when he exhaled. The air took the shape of what he didn't say. We're on the path. ETA 2 minutes. Fog's aesthetic tonight. Say thank you to the Pacific. Maya snorted behind him, the sound bright in the hush. She was his younger sister by 4 years, and by temperament a century older. The strap of her backpack crossed her chest. The buckles didn't squeak. She took care of things like that. It's not aesthetic. It's a sign of condensation, of a house that likes its business private. Chat Steeltoe 42. Bring Maya's lore. A cam's blade. Fog equals microclimate, not ghost sable moth. Don't mock the hill. I'm not mocking, Alex murmured. I'm monetizing. The mansion rose out of the mist in pieces. First the widow's walk with its iron ribs, then the fish-scale shingles, the mansard roof, the wink of a cracked window. The porch sagged gently, a mouth missing teeth. There used to be a nameplate, Maya said, running her fingers over a rectangle of clean wood where the grime broke. Harrow. He built railways. He didn't like that railways built him back. Source. Your favorite, an actual book. She touched the newel post. The varnish had fossilized into alligator skin. Don't be clever. Be careful. Alex jimmied the front door with a flat pry bar. The house sighed when it opened, sucking mist through itself like a chest taking in breath after too long underwater. Dust rose and fell. The smell had a personality. Wet wallpaper, cold iron, the sweet note of mouse droppings, a faint sting of old gas, as if someone had only just turned a knob and left the room. He swung the camera. Victorian entrance hall. Pattern tile. Staircase with oak banister. We'll avoid load-bearing insults tonight. The beam of his headlamp slid over a mirror veiled in cheesecloth. He twitched it aside. The glass reflected fog where he stood. Don't, Maya said. It's dust, not taboo. He gave the audience a look. We respect environments. We test them. The house made its first noise, footsteps, not the boom of a neighbor, not the scamper of an animal. A series of soft, even taps that seemed to trace the curve of the upstairs landing and stop directly above them. Salty arson. Nope. A cam's blade. Heat shift. Wood flex. Sable moth. Count the steps. 11, Maya whispered. They always say there were 11. 11 what? Steps from a nursery to the attic door. He listened. The wood settled like teeth grinding. Let's start with the ground floor. Rooms presented themselves like strangers. Parlor, library, dining room. Wallpapers peeled in broad tongues. Fringe curtains giggled when they breathed. Alex narrated with the steadiness of a man who kept panic behind glass. Measurements, architectural terms, comments on the way older houses drift over their foundations. The chat kept up a hum. Maya drifted toward the library. The smell of leather glued her in place. Look, she tilted a framed photograph toward the light. For figures, posed in the parlor they were standing in. A man like a chess piece, a woman whose dress made her look like she was being held together by pins, and 2 children with ribbon hair and the hollow eyes of long exposures. The eyes looked hand-painted until Alex moved in. They looked like they'd moved too. It's lens refraction, Alex said, but he had to make his mouth say it. And this is a hinge, Maya said, touching the edge of the bookcase. Her fingers found a hairline seam as exact as a blade. Listen. Alex held his breath. The house gave him his sound back. A click deep in the wood, a breath seeping through a crack. The bookcase groaned and pivoted out on hidden pins, revealing a narrow door with a rim of dustless clean where it had been opened and closed more times than anyone had told. He trained the camera on it. Hidden service access, probably, or a later edition. Wheel. Maya's hand hovered above the knob. 11, she said again, but now she was counting. 1, 2. She smiled without meaning to. Oh, she pressed the latch. 3. When the door opened, the air came through it like winter remembering itself. The temperature on Alex's wrist monitor dove 5 degrees. The camera stuttered, refocused, and stuttered again. Clack, 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 clack. The overhead light on the landing flickered off, on, off, as if it had never known it was broken. Steel toe 42. What was that temp drop? A cams blade. Power surge plus draft. Mod_June. Stay respectful, folks. No spamming. The passage beyond was steep and narrow, a servant stair with a braided rope for a handrail polished dark by hands that were all bones now. The walls narrowed as if the house were pinching them. Alex angled the camera to catch his face. Okay, we're going up. Wait. Maya slipped past him. You promised me the attic. I promised you a controlled. Alex. She used his name like a key. They climbed. 11 steps to the landing that wasn't a landing, but a tiny door set in the slope of the roof. The paint on the door had blistered and burst. Someone sometime had hammered the jamb with nails, then changed their mind and pried them out. The heads had snapped. The stubs stuck out like teeth. Alex put his palm flat to the center panel. His skin came away numbed. He had the sensation of touching a cold forehead and finding it too cold to be anyone asleep. We're opening, he told the camera, and didn't have enough breath to make his voice fill the sentence. The attic door unlatched like a whispered insult. Wind came out. Not air, not a draft. Wind, with mass and intention. It pushed their hair back. It pressed the taste of iron into their mouths. The gimbal dipped and the stream glitched into squares. Maya was a mosaic, then whole. And the house turned the lights on. Not bulbs, not lamps light a shallow swill that filled the stairwell and stopped at the threshold, as if it were afraid of the attic, too. Inside was small. It had no business being small. Houses kept their size and their bones. But the attic had room only for a rocking horse, a doll's pram, a trunk with a swell in its lid like an inhalation held too long, and a round window rimmed with black mold. The mold spelled shapes the mind wanted to read. Sable moth, do not go iron. A cam's blade, sample the air. Mold spores can cause hallucination. Steel toe 42, Maya behind you. Maya, Alex said. The name dropped into the attic like a coin into a well. He'd seen her step in front of him. He had the imprint of her shoulder under his hand. But now his hand hung in light and found nothing. The gimbal smoothed, searching for a face. There wasn't one. Maya. He laughed to scatter the panic. It fell from his mouth like broken glass. Okay, hide and seek is for subscribers, come on. The rocking horse moved. Not rocked. Moved, a small scoot that left a track in the dust like a finger dragged in flour. Footsteps answered from the walls. Not upstairs. Not down. In. They passed close enough to his ear that he felt a ruffle where hair should have stirred. They traced the room in a slow circle. When they reached the family portrait on the far wall, the same one from downstairs, but larger, the footsteps stopped. The portrait's eyes were ridiculous. They were too bright. They had been retouched by someone who liked pupils like pinholes. They followed him like water follows slope. Okay. He talked to the stream to talk to himself. There's a trick. There's always a trick. Parallax. The artist cheated perspective. If I draw a line from his finger trembled. A bead of cold formed on his knuckle and it didn't fall. A cam's blade. Debunk it, man. Show us the angles. Sable moth. Where is Maya? Mod_June. Alex, answer roll call on your comms. He clicked Maya's comm on his collar. It hissed like meat on a skillet. Through the hiss came a voice that could have been hers if she were 3 rooms away and underwater. Alex. He turned and hit the doorframe with his shoulder. The house had rearranged itself. There had been a single stair up and a single stair down. Now a hallway ran away to the left where the roof had been, lined with doors that were all, very politely, shut. The second door on the right had a nursery's embarrassment of color on the paper lambs and balloons that had yellowed into jaundice. The third door had a list of heights notched into the jamb with initials that repeated at uneven intervals. EH, EH, EH. Footsteps began again. They weren't walking, they were practicing. A child's cadence. Heel, pause, toe. The gaps were mathematical. 5 beats, 3, 5. A pattern. Morse. Alex said aloud before he could stop himself. He fumbled for his phone, for the app he'd once used to translate shortwave. The creaks spelled he couldn't be sure. The hallway had changed its length while he was looking down. The first door was farther than it had been, the second closer. His stomach made the small motion ships make when they slipped their moorings. Maya. He ran. The gimbal kept the frame steady while his head went wild. The nursery door opened into a bedroom that wasn't a nursery. A bed sat under the window. The sheet was turned down. There was the dent that a body makes when it gets up in the night and forgets to smooth its absence. The next room contained the smell of someone's breath when they've been crying for hours, salt and paper. The next contained nothing but wallpaper that had seen 1,000 afternoons and didn't want to see anymore. At the end of the shifting hall, a ladder led up through a square hatch. He hadn't seen it before because it hadn't been there. He climbed into the attic a second time. The round window looked out on mist, but not as mist. Their mist the Haro family's fog so bright with night that it looked like day turned inside out. Shadows moved on the attic floor. A man's broad-shouldered outline. A woman's hair pinned and repinned by nervous hands. 2 children, one tall enough to reach the table where a candlestick lay on its side like a fallen soldier. The shadows spoke without sound. You could hear the words if you didn't need your ears. Don't open the door. We already did. Don't nail it shut. We already tried. Don't light the gas. The mother moved. Her face had no features, but the motion was unbearable. She gathered both children as if they were kindling and made them small. The portal wasn't a portal like in movies. It was a thin place in the air shaped by attention. It was hungry. Alex felt it notice him the way a lake notices a thrown stone. Alex. His name came from the glass of the round window. Maya's reflection looked back at him from the outside, pale, fog on her eyelashes, fear lodged like a coin under her tongue. Don't step closer. It eats the living. It needs a fourth. What? His mouth couldn't carry meaning across. Maya, where are? In the stairs, her reflection said, and then not her reflection, a glimpse of her face framed by the round window, as if she were standing on the roof, which was impossible. I followed the creaks. They spell stay. The attic pulled. His knees softened. The camera tilted and the chat poured panic onto the screen. Sable Moth, back away. A cam's blade. This is a stunt. Steel Toe 42. There's a kid next to him. There's a kid next to him. Mod_June. Slow breathing Alex. Ground yourself. Call your position. He felt small fingers touch his sleeve. They weren't cold. They weren't warm. They existed at the temperature of the house. Alex did the ugliest thing he'd ever done. He yanked his arm free. Take me, he said to the empty air, because bargaining feels like bravery when you can't find the person you're supposed to save. Take me and let her go. The attic laughed without sound. The shadows on the floor turned their faces toward him as if he were a heat source. The portal thickened like a throat swallowing. No, Maya said, and the word came not from the window, but from the stairwell behind him. Don't feed it finish lines. It wants a family of 4. It wants a story. Her hand found his warm, blessedly warm. Come on. She pulled. The house pushed back. The hallway got longer by the exact length of an apology. They ran. Rooms rearranged themselves like thoughts in a fever. Doors opened onto walls that hadn't been built yet. The staircase switched sides. The portrait slid along the far wall, so they had to pass it. The family's eyes tracked their progress with patience. That was the worst part. Alex thought later their patience, as if they'd seen 100 people run and a dozen get out and knew that the numbers were not his favor. The steps creaked in a rhythm that stopped being Morse because it stopped being for him. The house was speaking to itself, reminding its joints where the weight should fall. The temperature rose, then fell, then rose again. His breath cut his throat, ice on the way in, steam on the way out. At the bottom of the last stair, the front door had become a door he didn't recognize. The pane of glass had gone black. Not dark, but black, like a pupil blown wide. He remembered rats in college labs, freezing when an owl's shadow passed over. His body remembered, too. He stopped. Maya didn't. She hit the door with both hands and shouldered it open like someone who had learned how to open doors that hadn't been made for her. "Move," she said. The hill's cold punched through him. He stumbled into fog. The house exhaled finally, a breath so long it could have been a winter. They ran to the fence post where the path remembered itself and stopped because you have to stop somewhere. Alex bent double and let his body insist on oxygen. The gimbal steadied, soldierly. The stream blinked from squares to sharp. Mod_June. Status check, please. Sable moth? I saw something in the glass. A cam's blade. Battery at 9%. End the stream. Regroup. End it, Maya said hoarsely. Alex, end it. He lifted the rig, thumb hesitating over the red button. We need the runtime. We need to leave. She didn't plead. She didn't have to. Please. He killed alive. The hill made no sound but fog settling around them like the aftermath of applause. He uploaded the recording the next morning because he told himself he believed in evidence. Because he told himself he didn't dream in chapter markers. Because he couldn't sleep, and work is a way to show your fear a seat and ask it to sit down. The comments began to accumulate in a tone he disliked. Not the usual taunts and praise like Hollard Street talk, but something quieter like gossip at a funeral. User_1091. Pause at 54:19. Look at the mirror. The __ room. There's a fifth person in the landing frame. Ferrum behind Alex. Hair wet. Face wrong. A cam's blade. Okay, NGL, that last reflection is not good. Alex didn't want to see. Then he did. At 54:19, when he'd said we're opening and the house had turned the lights on his headlamp, washed the landing mirror in milk-white glare. For a single frame, the exposure adjusted and the reflection was clean. Alex and Maya. The door. The corridor. A third figure standing behind him, closer than breath. The figure was him. Not like a twin. Not a delay. It was him if you peeled the sleep from the eyes and left only the watching. It had his hair damp with the attic's wind, and his mouth held too still, and his pupils spread too wide. It lifted its hand when he did not, a fraction sooner than his own fingers twitched. He froze the frame and kept it there until the image burned into his screen so he could see it with the monitor off. Maya came over that night because fear can read when you want to be alone and refuses. She watched the frame once, twice, 3 times, then closed the laptop. It brought something out with us, she said, or it left something in you. Or it was a trick of light. The lie rotted in his mouth as soon as he said it. Maya rubbed her thumb over the ridge of a scar on the back of her wrist that she never explained. We can choose to be careful with what the house wanted. What did it want? A finished story. Families like that die by force. It wanted you to make a fourth. It wanted the stream to watch. She looked at the ceiling like she could see the hill from beneath it. It feeds on attention dressed as love. He slept with the lights on. He dreamed of floorboards tapping 5, 3, 5 until the numbers meant something, and then meant nothing, and then meant the sound a heart makes when it is being borrowed. Morning found him shivering hard enough that the coffee slopped over the rim of the mug when he lifted it. He laughed because the cup burned, and at least that made sense. His phone buzzed. A new subscriber milestone. A brand deal inquiry. A DM from someone whose username made his teeth hurt. Hero_housekeeper. You didn't finish. Come back before the full moon. We built the stairs to be kind. He blocked the account. He walked circles in his apartment. The floor counted them for him. When he finally went out bright noon, busy sidewalk, his reflection followed in the shop windows like a dog. The glass version of him set its mouth in unfamiliar ways. Once, he stopped mid-step in front of a tailor's and watched his reflection stop a breath later, slow and interested. By instinct, by superstition, he avoided mirrors. He unplugged the bathroom cabinet and draped a towel over it. He worked with the laptop angled, so he appeared in no corner. He clicked his camera on to film an ordinary Canday and found himself speaking slower, enunciating like he could convince the thing that might be listening that he wasn't worth its patience. When he finally slept, the dream was simple. The attic door opened and the light didn't stop at the threshold. It filled the stairwell like a flood. It threw his shadow on the landing in a shape that didn't kick when he kicked. It bent and bent until his head touched the floor and his feet touched the ceiling, and he was the length of the house. They went back on the morning of the full moon because Maya said the house would hate noon, and Alex wanted to see something hate him that wasn't inside his own skull. They brought no stream. They brought salt because Maya insisted, and a hammer because Alex insisted, and a pocket mirror in a leather sleeve because the kind woman at the antique store said mirrors have manners if you do. The hill tasted like pennies. The house made them put their palms on its skin before it let them in, on the door frame, on the banister, on the newel post. Blood oath, Maya said softly, but when she looked at her hand, there was no red, only clean fingertips where the dust hadn't dared stick. They climbed the servant's stair. The door at the top had grown nails back, but they were soft like dead teeth. Maya laid a line of salt along the threshold, a small white river that wanted to be a road. Alex held up the pocket mirror and angled it. The attic appeared in miniature. The round window was a coin. The rocking horse, a toy for mice. His own face floated above the scene like a cloud. It didn't move before he did. It didn't blink out of time. Okay, he said to the house, not brave, not polite, just tired. We see you. The attic held its breath. Then it let it out through the gaps in the wood like wind in a canyon. Say it, Maya said. What? The thing you won't. He cleared his throat and tasted the attic. I'm not finishing your story. The footsteps began. Slow, insulted. Heel toe, toe. They spelled nothing he could read. They spelled the feeling of being watched through a keyhole. He put the pocket mirror down on the floor with its face turned down. Then he did a small, petty, human thing. He took his shipcleat keychain, the heavy little joke gift from his viewers that made his pocket hang, and set it in the round window's sill. You owe us, he said, and couldn't believe he was bargaining with the geometry. You took ours. Give them back to someone else. There was no answer. Houses don't answer. But later, when they were halfway down the path and the mist had risen to their knees like a child begging to be carried, Maya touched his arm. What? The sound, she said. He listened. Far behind them, the house's floorboards tapped in a rhythm he could count without knowing how. 5, 3, 5. He didn't know what it spelled. He didn't know if it spelled anything. But he felt something like a hinge ease in his chest. He posted no video that week. He posted a photo of the hill instead, mist bright as milk, captioned, We choose roofs. People argued in the comments about whether roofs chose them back. The night after the moon rounded, he dreamed he was brushing his teeth. When he looked up, the mirror showed him the attic, a neat trick of a midnight brain. He raised an eyebrow at himself. His reflection didn't. It simply looked. Say it. It said in his voice without his exhaustion. Say you'll come alone next time. He swallowed foam. He leaned close to the glass until his breath fogged it and wrote with one finger in the fog. No. In the morning, the word was still there, a faint scrawl across his own mouth. He rinsed it with hot water and peppermint and didn't look again. He and Maya didn't go back. Sometimes not going is the bravest thing you can make your legs do. Sometimes in line at the market or pausing at a crosswalk, a stranger's phone would catch him in its front-facing camera. The stranger would frown, tilt their head, and glance up, surprised to find him closer than the screen suggested, his face arranged too politely, already watching. He learned to nod to his reflection when he caught it lagging by a blink. He learned to walk past shop windows without slowing to make the glass show him his other angles. He learned the taste of iron could be rinsed out with oranges and talking and sunlight. He stopped reading the comments on the last stream. He stopped except once. Sable Moth, you did fine. Not all houses want blood. Some want biography. Don't give it yours. He pinned that one. He set his phone face down. On a bright afternoon in November, an unseasonable, unkind blue sky, the antique mirror on his dresser cracked. Not a dramatic shatter. A single hairline that ran from the top left corner, through the place where his eye would be if he stood very close, to the bottom right where the frame hit it. He taped the crack with clear tape, because that is what you do when something exactly manageable breaks. Then he took the mirror down and slid it under his bed, face toward the floor. That night, when he turned out the light, his dark room reflected a darker one from the space below his bed, a square of black that had weight. He lay awake and practiced breathing. In 4, hold 4, out 6. He matched his lungs to the floorboards. They answered him in 5, 3, 5. They would answer for a long time. The house had followed him because houses can do that if you bring them in your ribs. Alex got up. He went to the bathroom. He looked into the lit mirror above the sink and watched himself watch himself until the part that wanted to look away learned how to stay. He raised his hand. His reflection did, too, at the same time, in the same way. He waited, counting 1, 2, 3 until the silence had a shape he could walk around. "Good night," he said. He meant it. Behind him, just outside the frame, something stood very still and did not answer. He turned off the light. The mirror held his face for one extra heartbeat before it let go.